Hey everyone, it's Alison Heikkila. Thank you so much for joining me. It's time for my latest Imagine video. We are going to be using a bunch of different products from Imagine, as well as a couple of dies from Spellbinders, a background stamp from Trinity, and we're going to make a really pretty floral encouragement card today. So I'm going to start off by moving some of these things off to the side, and we are going to start with this Foliage die. This is from the new Everyday Foliage die set. Everything that I use will be linked below in the description box. And what I have here is not a piece of cardstock, but it's just a piece of foam. You can get this at any craft store by you. You can get it online, of course. I usually just get it at a local craft store because it's inexpensive. I can get a bunch of colors and sizes. And we are going to die cut this from the foam so that it becomes a stamp. So I'm going to just take care of this really quickly over at my die cutting machine, and then we can start playing. Okay, I went and cut this out, and you can see that it just pops right out of the foam. Sometimes you might need to run it through twice, depending on the intricacy of your die or your machine, but I only had to run it through my machine one time, and you can see that it's coming out pretty easily. You just want to make sure that you are kind of gentle if you're using something as delicate as this die, because you don't want to rip it accidentally. So once this is out completely, I'm going to grab some temporary adhesive and mount it onto an acrylic block. If you don't have an acrylic block, you can use a stamping platform of some kind. If you don't have that, you can use your surface and work right on there. I'm actually going to be doing that with the background stamp that we're using. And that is that. Take a look. Look at the detail. Isn't that so pretty? You can really just use this as an embellishment in and of itself, but we're going to stamp with it today. So I'm going to grab my temporary adhesive, an acrylic block, and my background stamp. Okay, I just have some temporary adhesive and my acrylic block, and I'm going to just apply some of this. You don't need a whole lot. You just want it to be able to stick to the block well enough for you to be able to repeat stamp a few times. All right, that is mounted on there well. We're going to leave that off to the side and use that shortly. Now, I have the encouragement text background stamp from Trinity. I'm going to peel off the backer. And again, there are a few ways you can stamp this. I am going to just put it right here on my glass mat and stamp it from there. If you have a stamping platform of some kind, you can absolutely use that. But when I'm doing background stamps, I really like to do it right on my mat. I've got my Morning Mist VersaFine Clair, and I'm going to ink this up. We don't need to do the whole thing, but you know, I'll probably wind up doing more than I need to because we want to make sure that we cover our background really well. Okay, I'm going to lay this on here. I grabbed a piece of scrap paper so that I don't get inky fingers, although I don't usually mind that. I'll try to stay clean for at least a little while today. Just going to rub the whole thing. In addition, if you have a tool that will help you push, you can use this as well, but my only concern with doing that at the moment without using it in like a platform of some kind is that I don't want to shift my cardstock accidentally. So this time I'm going to just use my hands. And what we can do is we can peel this up a little bit just to make sure, yep, that worked out well. Perfect. Okay, move this off to the side. Make sure you clean that up later. And now we can use our stamp that we've created out of foam. So now I have Shady Lane VersaFine Clair, and I'm going to ink this up really well. Whoop, shift it a little bit, that's okay. Might need to add a little bit more adhesive to this. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to need a little bit more. I'm going to put it directly on the block itself, I think. It doesn't really like to stick to the block, but we're going to try. Okay. And now we're going to stamp. And you can see that there's white spaces here. That's okay. I don't mind that. It's just some detail showing. So I'm going to start in the upper left corner. That's usually where I start when I'm stamping a full background with something. Oh, look at how pretty that is. See, it's just as well that it didn't cover all of the veining, because now you have that extra detail and the print shows through, which is really cool. And now I'm going to move it down and shift to the right a little bit. Doesn't need to be at the same angle, but I think that I'm going to do that this time. Try to keep it at the same angle. We're essentially creating our own pattern paper here, which is fun. And you could see how nicely the foam accepts the ink. And you can really make unique backgrounds very quickly with just your dyes, if you want to. Try to get the stem in this one. And then we'll try to do a little bit over there to fill in. I just don't want to overlap any of this. There we go, that's pretty close. I can probably put a little bit right there too. Again, just to make sure that it looks as though the pattern continues past this cardstock. Look at how pretty that is, and so fast to make, right? And this stamp you can use over and over again. It's not going to last you forever, but thankfully craft foam isn't super expensive, and you can probably just get a bunch of them out of one sheet if you really plan on using something over and over again. Just cleaning up my space here. And now we have our background. Now I had shown you earlier a second die, and that's this one. So this I'm going to actually cut out of cardstock, and we are going to use our violet emboss with this. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment. We're going to just cut it out of cardstock first, and then we'll play with the embossing powder. We've cut that out, and look at how pretty and detailed this die is. So nice. Okay, so we have a couple of ways that we can do this. We can approach this with the Versa marker, which essentially is VersaMark ink, just in a marker form. And it has two tips. We've got this larger one on one side, like a brush tip, and then we have a bullet nib on the other. The other thing that we can do is you just use our pad. So I'm going to use the pad because I think it might be a little quicker today. And to do this, I am going to lay this into, just ignore those spots there. This is just a scrap piece of cardstock that I had laying around that I decided to repurpose. I'm going to just lay this on here, and using my nails or fingertips, or you could even use like a pokey tool if you want to. Just be careful that you don't pierce your pad or your die cut. We're going to just press this in here and make sure that it is covered well. Now I've got a piece up here that's past the ink pad, so we're going to bring that down, push that in like so, and we should be able to see that it is pretty well covered. Can you see the shine? It's pretty well covered. I need to do a little bit more over here, and that should be good enough. Yeah, I think that's okay. I say that and then I dip it back into the pad. Okay, so we're going to move that off to the side. I'm going to grab a piece of scrap paper from my desk. And then we're going to take the emboss powder. And open it up. And pour it right onto our die cut if I can pick it up again. Okay. You can even dip it in like this in case there's any areas that you missed. And then for the stem here, you can see that there's quite a bit coming down, which normally I wouldn't mind too much, but it's coming down a little further than I'd like. So I'm going to just use a dry brush and kind of remove as much as I can there. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my heat tool and we will get this to melt. Going to be a little bit of noise. I'm going to let it heat up. And you can watch it melt. Now, if you feel like you need more powder on here, you can either put it back in the ink pad, or you just dip it right back into the powder while it's still hot and get another coating on there. Did you see how that coated really well? Let's grab it. I'm going to heat this up carefully and dip it back in. And we're getting a nice thick coat of powder. Now we have this really shiny, really thick, very cool looking flower. Okay, I need to now put the powder back into the envelope so that we can store it properly. It stays open nicely. And I'm just going to pour that back in. When you do that technique of dipping, please be careful. Your embossing gun is very hot and you are working with melted powder. So you want to be super careful that you don't burn yourself accidentally. Isn't that pretty? I think that came out really cool. There's a little bit of a spot right here that I don't love, so I think I'm going to fix that, and maybe these here, and then we'll finish off the stem. Now that our flower is finished being embossed, we can add some color to the stem. So I'm going to grab Shady Lane again and just ink up the stem. And if you get some on the embossed area, don't worry, because the embossing powder will act as a resist, and you can just wipe that away. Making sure to get the sides as best as I can. I can also grab a Memento marker and use that to color if I want to, but I wanted it to match the background of our card. Okay, wiping away the excess. Okay, now the problem with this is that it's difficult to see. The stamping and the die cut are so fine that they just kind of blend together, so it's hard to kind of see one thing versus the other. So it's confusing to the eye. So I figured that I would take some vellum and cut around our flower and use that. Another option would be to cover the whole background with vellum, and it just kind of makes it recede while you're still able to see it, but it softens the whole thing quite a bit. And that is a very pretty look as well. But I think that I want to try using the vellum and cutting around our flower first. And if I don't love that, then we'll go back and add a full piece to the panel and go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim a piece of this to make this whole bit smaller first, and then I'll cut around it a little bit nicer. Okay, so the trick to doing this, I like to start in the area where my most delicate piece is, and then I work my way around. So I'm going to, and we're not doing a full fussy cut here because we want to leave a border around this so that it breaks up the background from the foreground. And you can see that I don't really move the scissors a whole lot. I'm moving my left hand more than anything else. I'm going to remove this piece. I'm using my left hand to move the flower. And remember, this is not glued down yet, so you want to be careful not to shift it. If you feel like you want to glue it first, that's fine, but then you're kind of committed to, using the vellum in this way. But since I'm not really sure what I'm doing yet, I don't really want to glue it. doesn't need to be perfect. You just want to get kind of a general shadow layer. I'm going to just go in a little bit right here. There we go. Okay. Now let's see if we like that. I feel like it's not enough. It doesn't do enough. It's pretty, but I feel like it doesn't break it up enough. So I think that we're going to go back to the other idea and cover the whole panel with vellum. So I have another piece of vellum, and I cut it larger than this panel because what I want to do, because we don't want the adhesive to show. So what I plan on doing is I'm going to cut a little notch. I think I'll just cut diagonally from each corner. And then what I'll do is I'm going to fold it over and tape it to the background. I've got my tear it tape here at the ready, and that's what we're going to use to attach the vellum to this panel. So I'm going to carefully just fold this over. And we'll wind up trimming some of these corners because they're just going to be in the way. But I don't want to do that until I get this all folded. It's kind of like wrapping a present. Just going to fold this over. You can use a bone folder if you want to really get those corners wrapped, but I don't really think it's that necessary right now. Okay, and now I'm going to apply my adhesive around all four sides, and then we'll fold everything down. Tear it tape is great because, as you just saw, it tears really easily. Now, this is a 1/4 inch tape, and obviously I don't have a 1/4 inch going all the way around, but it's okay. We'll just have a little bit of excess glue sticking out. Not a big deal. We could always trim this down if we want to, but I'm not about to do that. That's just not necessary. We need to add adhesive to the back of this anyway when we apply it to our card base, so we'll just worry about it then. So you can see here I've got this little bit of extra vellum sticking out here, so I'm just going to trim that away. And this is sort of how you would make a full panel shaker too. You can do it with vellum if you want to. You could do it with acetate. So that's another way that you can use this technique. Not just kind of muting a background. Fold this down, and then we can trim off the last bit over here and over here. Now that is really pretty. It's so soft, but it's really nice. And now our flower stands out, but we still need a little something else. So I grabbed a couple of dies from the Handwritten Sentiments die set from Spellbinders. I have Hello Friend, and I have the shadow dies to go with it. I don't know if we'll use the shadow dies, but I thought it would be really pretty to just put the Hello Friend like here-ish. So I think that I'm going to cut that out of purple, and then we'll decide if we're going to use the shadow layer. I have totally stuck this down to my glass mat. That's okay. I have a couple pieces of scrap paper. This is just white cardstock, and I'm going to use Grape Jelly Memento ink on it because I really want my dies to coordinate well with my flower. So I'm using the grape jelly to ink up this cardstock, and then you can see that it looks really nice with that. I was also contemplating using the grape jelly fireworks spray because that would give it a little bit of shine, but I really want the flower to be the star of the show, so I opted to just use Memento. So now I'm going to take these and die cut them, and we will work out our sentiment. Here is my hello friend, and before we apply that to our card front, what I want to do is work on the base. And I know that typically I don't work on the base until the very end, but since I have so much adhesive sticking out of that panel from behind, I want to get the card base ready. So I have Bamboo Leaves fireworks spray, and I shook it really well off screen, and now I'm going to just use the nozzle and kind of flick some color around the edge. I don't want to overdo the edge, but I do want to have something there. That's what it looks like. Oh, look at that shine. Isn't that so pretty? Now, a lot of this is going to get covered up, but I did want to have something happening to that edge. That looks really pretty. Okay, so now I'm going to just use some more Terra tape and just get this panel stuck down, because we're not going to change anything about this panel anymore. We're just going to add to it. Just burnishing it with my fingers so that it adheres. And then remove all of this paper. And now I'll adhere it to the card front. Okay, ready? Deep breath. Okay, perfect. I really like how this is looking. So nice. Okay. Now we have our flower. We have our friend and our hello. I don't think I want to put it on the stem anymore because I don't want to use the shadow layer. Now it's just a matter of kind of deciding where we want it to go. I kind of like it like this. I think that that's different. We'll go with that. I also have, it's hard to see, but the dot of the eye or the tittle is right there, so I can't lose that. I'm going to grab my on point glue and we are going to adhere these pieces down. I have a piece of washi tape that I'm going to just stick in here to keep that shut. That's one of the main reasons why I don't like working on my card base directly until the very end, because I don't want to deal with the card popping open. Adding the on point glue. This is great glue for embellishments like sequins or rhinestones, things like that. I love it because it's clear, it dries quick, it stays strong. I'm just making sure that I'm getting those petals. Okay. Put that like this. I'm going to get an acrylic block to put on top to help that adhere while I glue the rest of this down. After letting this sit for a few minutes just to make sure everything was nice and dry, we have our finished card. I'm really happy with this. I think it's so pretty. I love the subtle words in the background. I love this shine on the flower. I think it came out really pretty. And I hope that you're inspired to give some of this a try. Go and grab your dies and make foam stamps out of them and stamp a background and double and triple dip with your embossing powder and just have a good time. That's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you all very soon. Be well, stay safe. Peace out.